Warning, this video is meant to make fun of a school shooter. I do not support violence or extremism in any way. On April 16, 2007, Seung-Hoi Cho would go to Ambler Johnston Hall on the Virginia Tech campus. He would walk into the dorm room of 19-year-old Emily Hilscher. There, he would shoot her to death. Hearing the gunshots, her neighbor, Ryan Clark, would come into the room, where he would then be shot and killed as well. Cho would then escape back to his dorm. There, he would change clothes and destroy his hard drive and phone. He would then mail a package containing various writings and videos to NBC News. He would then head to Norris Hall, where he would chain the 3 exits shut. He left a note on one of the doors, saying that if it was opened, a bomb would detonate. A student would find this and attempt to tell staff, but by then, it was too late. Shortly after the note was discovered, Cho would begin shooting on the 2nd floor. His rampage would last approximately 10 minutes, resulting in the deaths of 30 people. The massacre would only end after he took his own life. In this video, I'm going to go over just how insane he was as a person, going over encounters people had with him in university. As you'll learn, there were definitely some warning signs. I mean, this guy had a supervillain persona called Question Mark, like he's the Riddler. But before we get into that, I'll provide a short summary of his life up until college. Cho was born January 18th, 1984, in South Korea, the youngest of 2 children. Now, straight from birth, he was a silent and weird kid. He never wanted to be touched, wouldn't even be hugged. We don't really know why, but from the ages of 9 months to 3 years old, he had serious health problems, and after some unpleasant surgeries, he did not want to be touched afterwards. He was also a very shy and quiet child, rarely talking to anybody. It was beginning to become a bit of a problem. His entire family was worried. His grandmother would say in an interview, "My grandson was shy, even as a little boy, and he would never run to me like my other grandchildren." The boy was so different from his super intelligent older sister. His extreme shyness worried his parents. I thought he might be deaf and dumb. When he was 8 years old, he and his family would move to the United States. His parents wanted to have a better life for themselves and their children, and his mother had hoped that over time, his silenceness would get better as he grew older. Unsurprisingly, moving to a foreign country with no real understanding of the language just made him even more socially isolated. Not beating the stereotypes, he was a really smart kid, very good at math and science, always doing his homework on time and achieving high grades. But he would experience some bullying and mockery throughout the years for his poor English skills and accent. Once, in an English class, the teacher had the students read aloud, and when it was Cho's turn, he just looked down in silence. Finally, after the teacher threatened to give him a failing grade for participation, Cho started to read in a strange, deep voice that sounded like he had something in his mouth. As soon as he started reading, the whole class started laughing and pointing, saying, "Go back to China." All attempts from his parents to try and get him to socialize would fail. He would have very, very few friends. It was claimed by an anonymous family friend that every time he came home from school, he'd cry and beg to never go back. His mother would get so frustrated by his lack of speaking to her. She would sometimes shake him, trying to get him to say anything. She would spend much of her free time at church, praying her son would get better. Whenever relatives called Cho's mother, she would mostly talk about her daughter, making them suspect something was wrong with Cho. The only family member he consistently talked to would be his sister. They would have a mostly friendly relationship, but whenever Cho got into conflict with her, he would sometimes respond disproportionately, punching her really hard whenever they fought. If Cho was required to speak to a visitor to the house, he would become very shy, sometimes even crying. He would usually just reply to yes or no questions, nodding his head. In middle school, he would begin seeing a therapist for his socialization problems. It was kinda hard, since he refused to talk or even make eye contact. The therapist would have him draw or paint something to communicate with her. This would work and get Cho to become more social. Cho's therapist noted that while explaining the meaning of Cho's artwork to him, his eyes sometimes filled with tears. In March of 1999, his artwork changed. It became creepy. He would exclusively draw tunnels and caves and seemed to become depressed. His therapist became concerned that his artwork was a sign that he was feeling suicidal or homicidal thoughts. He denied having them, but his therapist drew up a contract with him anyway, spelling out that he would do no harm to himself or to others. She told him to communicate with his parents or someone at school if he did experience any ideas about violence. The next month, April 20th, 1999, the Columbine High School shooting would happen, which would start a years-long fixation for Cho. Following his therapist's advice, he would write a paper about the shooting in English class, which would alarm his teacher. According to his teacher, the paper expressed generalized thoughts of suicide and homicide, indicating that he wanted to repeat Columbine. Because of this, his family was contacted, and his family would tell his therapist. In June of 1999, he would see a psychiatrist, wherein he was diagnosed with selective mutism and major depression. Tests administered by mental health professionals evaluated Cho to be a much younger person than his actual age, which indicated social immaturity, lack of verbal skills, but not retardation. His tested IQ was above average. He would be given some medication to help with his depression and anxiety, but after a year, the prescription would be stopped by his doctor, as he believed Cho had improved enough to not need it. He definitely did not. In high school, he would continue the trend of just existing, being a ghost that never really spoke to anyone. He would have special education privileges, being excused from doing oral presentations. He would, however, score very high on his SAT, as well as having a pretty good GPA. He'd also stop going to therapy after turning 18. Cho's high school would assess him and determine that he most likely does not have autism, or if he does, it's not the cause of any of his problems. If Cho had autism or not is a major point of contention. While he never received an official diagnosis, Cho's great aunt did say the family was told he was autistic. There is strong evidence he has Asperger's syndrome, but with no official diagnosis, you can't say for sure. Because of how well he did academically, he'd be accepted into Virginia Tech, although his family was worried about him going to such a big college. They were worried it might cause problems for him, socially. Virginia Tech would not be aware of his mental health problems, or his need for special education accommodations. Now we can finally get into all the weird shit he did at university. First day of his English class, he walks in. There's a sign-in sheet. Everyone that enters is required to write their name. He goes up to it and writes his name. The professor is watching him do this, and he asked him, "Is your name question mark?" Cho didn't actually write his name. He just wrote a question mark. This is the moment Cho becomes question mark man. Afterwards, his peers in the class would refer to him as question mark kid, most of them never learning his real name until the shooting. He rarely spoke to anyone. If anyone tried to speak with him, he would either give one-word answers or not say anything at all. He would start out as a business technology major before switching to an English major. This is because he became very obsessed with writing and one day having a book published. Despite this, he kinda sucked ass at writing. In his poetry class, taught by Professor Nicky Giovanni, he would arrive every day wearing sunglasses and a hat pulled down over his face. After being told to stop wearing this, he would begin showing up with a scarf covering his face. He would refuse to participate in class discussion and would photograph the legs of his female classmates. To top it all off, his poetry was disturbing and horrified the class. One day, of the 70 students in her class, 7 would show up. She would ask one of the remaining students why so many of her peers didn't come, and she replied, "It's the boy. Everyone's afraid of him." 63 students didn't come to class because they were afraid of Cho. Cho was one of those remaining students too, so it was like 6 people there besides him. This is just comically crazy. How is this not a serious red flag? Can you imagine what it was like for him walking through the hallways? But seriously, imagine having someone in your class. Nobody knows his name. Everyone just calls him question mark kid. He starts taking pictures of your legs, and every time he reads his poetry for the class, it's always the most insane, horrifying thing you've ever heard. That same student would also tell the professor about Cho's habit of taking pictures of legs. Despite this, he would remain in the class until it was his turn to read a poem he had written for the class. This poem would be the straw that broke the camel's back. So-called advanced creative writing poetry. Not too long ago, I had an epiphany about this class. What barbarians you people are. Now tell me if I'm wrong, but I thought this was a poetry class. Yet everybody but me that is, spent the whole hour and a half talking about eating. It started with somebody talking about eating baked beans every day overseas in some country. Then before I knew it, the conversation turned into a type of conversation, that of Animal Massacre Butcher Shop. Some people began talking about chopping off turtles' heads, dipping them into eel sauce and eating them, cooking lion's balls deep fried and thin sliced and eating them with ketchup, and chewing on a nice fat bird's head with a nice bottle of wine. Then, that somebody said she doesn't do that anymore because the animals she ate are now her friends. Yet she, who deliciously, joyfully gobbled them up like one jolly clown. That's like a robber stealing $20 million from a bank and years later haughtily apologizing for stealing the money without returning any of it. Yeah, as long as he's sorry. As if. I don't know who said that, but that somebody is in this room. That somebody sits in this vicinity right there to be exact. If I'm not mistaken, I don't know which uncouth, low-life planet you come from, but you disgust me. In fact, you all disgust me. Because as far as I can remember, somebody jumped in and said, Have you eaten a snake? They taste so good. I love snakes. Who said that? What's wrong with you? You want to get leprosy or something? As if that wasn't bad enough, she went on. Ostrich is so good too. My uncle owns an ostrich farm, and every summer we murder a few of them and we barbecue them on the grill. Rare. Possums are pretty good too. You should kill them and eat them because they go through your trash and make a mess. You should just kill them and eat them. Then another person jumped in and said, if you own a horse, you should keep him locked up in a cage so his muscles don't develop. It's much easier to chew him that way. Before I could shake my head and catch a break to all this genocide talk of innocent animals, certain individuals ran out of the class, not to throw up on the bathroom floor, but to get something to eat. Hey you guys, you're making me hungry. Who said that? You know exactly who you are. Yes, I'm talking to you, all of you. You low-life barbarians make me sick to the stomach that I want to barf all over my new shoes. If you despicable human beings who are all a disgrace to the human race keep this up, before you know it, you'll turn into cannibals, eating little babies, your friends, siblings, your parents, grandparents, and your classmates. That's it. I'm getting the hell out of here before I blink and I get eaten alive by you barbarous, uncivilized monsters. I hope you all burn in hell for mass murdering and eating all of those harmless little animals. I can only imagine that what came after that was just complete silence. The next day, his professor would send him an email, basically begging him to either drop the class or switch professors. Mr. Cho, your paper of October 10th is disturbing to me. From the beginning of this semester, I've had the impression that you did not wish to be a part of this class. You usually have a ball cap pulled over your eyes as if you are asleep, and when I have asked, as I did several times, for you to at least push it back a bit, you did not comply. I am not sure why you enrolled in this class, but I feel like I am not being a help to you, either through your writing or sparking your imagination. If you would prefer some other creative writing professor, I will be more than pleased to do all in my power to help you make the change, even at this late date. If you feel you have enrolled in error, I will be pleased to allow you to withdraw with no prejudice. I think you need to consider whether or not you wish to continue with me in this class, and if so, please make time so that you and I can discuss what steps you will need to complete to be brought up to date. Sincerely, Nikki Giovanni. This is the nicest possible way to tell someone to fuck off. After Cho refused to drop the class or switch professors, his professor would give the English department leader, Lucinda Roy, an ultimatum: remove Cho from her class, or she would resign. She was willing to lose her job as a professor just so she didn't have to have him in her class. Cho would end up being taken out of her class and not wanting anyone else to deal with him. Roy would tutor him one-on-one. On their first day of one-on-one tutoring, she would attempt to talk to him about that poem. You probably know why you've been asked to come here today. The poem you read in class. It was a joke, satire. And what's with you taking photos of other students in class? It's just a hobby. I take pictures of trees, the sky. Well, taking pictures of other students without permission is something the university takes extremely seriously, especially if you're publishing them on a website or something like that. That could get you in some serious trouble, and I wouldn't want that to happen to you. Do you understand? Yeah. Were you offended by the class discussion of eating animals? I wasn't offended. I was just making fun of it. I thought it was funny. Thought I'd make fun of it. Are you vegetarian? No. Do you have religious beliefs about eating meat or animals? No. Are you finding the class helpful? Would you rather be taking another class? When things are assigned to me, I do it. You don't seem like yourself. Like the student I knew at the start of the school year. Did anything bad happen to you? No. I'm just like real quiet and shy. So giving a presentation or something would be like torture for you? No. Or working one-on-one, say with someone like me, maybe that would be hard for you? No. Okay, good. So you have two choices. You can explain to your fellow students in class that your poem was satire and assure them you won't take any more pictures of them. Or you can work with me. Which one? I don't know. Well, you can let me know by Friday. Roy would then attempt to convince Cho to go into counseling, to no avail. When their meeting was over and Cho left, she would give him a copy of her book. She noted that he seemed to be near crying and was upset. Roy would try and try to get Cho into counseling, but he wouldn't agree. She would alert multiple departments of the school, including campus police. But because he hadn't done anything illegal, there was nothing they could do. I definitely feel like he could have been expelled for the whole photographing legs thing, right? Maybe they didn't have enough proof, even though basically the entire class saw it. Cho would also be very creepy around his two roommates, Andy Koch and John Ide. Thinking Cho was just a shy kid, they would attempt to connect with him and maybe help him become slightly more social. They would take him to a party where they would all drink together. After he got a bit tipsy, he would open up about his life. He told them about his supermodel girlfriend who lives in outer space named Jelly, who would call him Spanky as a nickname. Really? That was their actual response to that. They weren't sure if he was joking, but no, he was dead serious. Unsurprisingly, when he went to sleep later that night, they would go through his belongings. They didn't find anything suspicious, besides a pocket knife. The next day, Cock would try and enter Cho's room to talk to him, but the door was locked. Cho said he was making out with Jelly and he couldn't come in. He's literally doing that "my girlfriend lives in Canada" thing, but completely unironically. Shortly after, Cock would be woken up in the middle of the night by two people banging on the door. When he opened it, it was the police, and they asked for Cho. Cock would leave to respect his privacy. The police spoke to Cho for a bit, but nothing would come of it. When the police left, Cock would go back into the living room, and Cho would ask, "Want to know why the police were here?" He'd go on to explain that he was text messaging a girl, which I'm sure was not consensual. After a bit of harassing her, he would find out where she lived and go into her private dorm room to look her in the eye and see if she was cool. He goes in, wearing sunglasses and a hat, and introduces himself. "Hi, I'm question mark." But he said when he looked her in the eye, all he saw was promiscuity in her gaze. This made him not want to talk to her anymore, so he left. That was like a random encounter in Fallout. The girl was understandably terrified. She would call the police immediately after he left. Can you imagine being his roommate? Like, what do you even say after he tells you this? Damn, bro. You'll find a girl without a promiscuous gaze eventually. She was far from the last girl Cho would harass. One day, after Cho and his two roommates were done going to a party, they would head to a girl's room. Randomly, in the middle of everyone hanging out and talking to each other, he would pull out a pocket knife and start stabbing the carpet. I can't find anything about what happened afterwards, but I imagine they just let him do it out of fear. Unsurprisingly, this would be the last time his roommates would take him to a party. Cho would later have another incident with the same girl who he destroyed the carpet of. He had a Facebook account he'd use sometimes, mostly to harass women he'd become obsessed with. The thing is, the name on that account was question mark. And instead of actually posting pictures of himself like normal people do, he'd post drawings of a Zorro-looking guy whose face was blank except for a large question mark. He would repeatedly make contact with that girl on this account, messaging her and leaving comments on her page that were self-deprecating. She began to suspect it was Cho, and would ask this strange question mark if it was. He'd reply with, "I do not know who I am." He goes so far as to go to her dorm room door and write lines from Romeo and Juliet on the little dry erase whiteboard she had hanging on it. "My name, dear saint, is hateful to myself. Had I written it, I would tear the word." Now at first, the girl wasn't too scared, but then Cock would message her and say something like, "Oh yeah, that probably was Cho. He's been stalking women and I think he's a bit schizophrenic." This would scare her into reporting the incidents to the police, to which the police would have a stern talking to with Cho, because technically he hadn't done anything illegal. After this, Cho would email Cock, saying something along the lines of, "I might as well kill myself now." Cock would ask if he really meant that, call his own father, and tell the police. Cho would finally face some consequences, and he would be taken to a psychiatric clinic. While there, he would be found to be mentally ill and in need of hospitalization. He was temporarily detained. He would soon be facing a judge who would determine if he had to go to treatment or not. So the entire shooting was prevented, right? They found out he was the most mentally ill guy in existence and forced him to go into treatment? Well, not exactly. He was declared dangerously mentally ill in order to go to treatment in December 2005, but he just didn't go to the treatment. You see, the court legally isn't able to follow up or enforce these rulings. So what agency or department does? None. To put into perspective how stupid this is, imagine somebody is sentenced to prison time by a judge, but in a world where the police don't exist. So who can actually make sure they go to prison? Nobody. A judge would say this about the system: "When I let the person go outpatient, I always put on the record, I hope I don't read about you tomorrow in the paper. Don't make me look like the foolish judge that could have stopped you." What? "Hey, I'm sentencing you to treatment, but we can't actually force you to go. Please don't kill anyone, it'll make me look bad." She's saying this like it's some quirky, funny thing. Why does it seem like the government just doesn't work sometimes? Further creepy behavior by Cho is that he would frequently call his roommates and say some pretty weird stuff. Like when he called Cock and introduced himself as question mark, he said he was Cho's twin brother and asked for Cho. I can only imagine how this phone call went. "Hey, it's me, question mark. Can I speak to Cho?" "Cho? Why are you calling me?" This isn't Cho, this is his twin brother." "Okay, well, I have caller ID, dude, I know it's you." Later, on Thanksgiving, Cho would call him again and say he was vacationing with Vladimir Putin in North Carolina. He'd reply with, "I'm pretty sure that's not possible, Cho." Eventually, Cho's roommates would just give up trying to befriend him. And I honestly commend them for trying so hard. While living with him, they would go through his stuff whenever he slept and throw away any knives he had. After his disastrous junior year, Cho's mother would begin to look towards religion even more for help. According to Dong Cho Lee, minister of One Mind Presbyterian Church of Washington, Cho's mother would come into his church for help. Cho's problem needed to be solved by spiritual power. That's why she came to our church, because we were helping several people like him. Sure, members of his church would tell Cho's mother that Cho was possessed by demonic power and he needed deliverance. But before that could happen, he would move back to Virginia Tech. He would soon start his senior year, and he would change roommates and move into a 3-bedroom suite with 5 other students. He would share his own bedroom with another student. He wouldn't talk to any of his roommates at all. It seems as if he became even more socially isolated. One of his roommates would say he never even heard his voice until the video manifesto was aired on the news. He would also rarely, if ever, make eye contact. He would often sit in a wooden rocking chair, staring out the window, silently. He would also ride his bicycle around in circles, around the dormitory parking lot. He would give himself buzz cuts in the shared sink. He would sleep with the lights on, and whenever he slept, he would loudly moan. He would play the same song over and over again, Shine by Collective Soul. He would even write the lyrics of the song on his bedroom wall. Teach me how to speak, teach me how to share, teach me where to go. It's also in his senior year that he would write his infamous Richard McBeef play in his playwriting class. The play was leaked by a classmate the day after the shooting. The reason for its infamy is just how weird it is. He doesn't write like an actual human, he writes like an alien. I can't read the entire thing, it's just way too long. I'll probably make an entire video just reading it. Basically, the plot of it is Richard McBeef is the stepdad to this kid named John. John hates Richard for seemingly no reason, and would lie that Richard molested him to his mother. This would lead to his mother taking out a chainsaw and attempting to kill Richard. Richard would kill John at the end of the story, out of anger. You might recognize this story as that one Jezebel Gebergely song.
All you do for mom is all this honey poo shit, honey poo, honey poo.
Someone turned it into a movie, which is pretty interesting if you want to watch that. By the way, the class had to read each other's plays, so people were forced to read everything he'd write. According to a classmate of his, when we read Cho's plays, it was like something out of a nightmare. The plays had really twisted, macabre violence. When the students gave reviews of his play in class, we were very careful with our words, in case he decided to snap. We always joked we were just waiting for him to do something, waiting to hear about something he did. But when I got the call it was Cho who had done this, I started crying. In early 2007, he would begin purchasing his firearms. First, a Walter P22 pistol in February 2007, then a Glock 19 the next month. Now, you may be wondering, how the hell was he able to buy guns? Well, basically, he was ordered to attend outpatient treatment, when only inpatient treatment is required to be added to the background check system. This was an oversight that would soon be closed after the shooting. It's amazing how you can be declared dangerously mentally ill, but also buy guns. He would also begin to bulk order magazines from eBay, as well as rubber ducks, specifically 36 normal rubber duckies and 1 giant rubber ducky. I also collect rubber duckies, so I can't make fun of him for this. When he mailed his manifesto, he would mail it under the name Axe Ishmael. He would also carve this name into himself. Nobody knows the meaning of it. There's a few different theories, but it's probably just something he heard once and thought sounded cool in his deranged mind. Now, as for his video manifesto itself, it's seriously unhinged. Only around 2 minutes of it would be shown by news stations, with the rest of the footage being lost media.
I didn't have to do this. I could have left. I could have fled. But no, I will no longer run. If not for me, for my children, for my brothers and sisters, the chief I did it for them. You had 100 billion chances and ways to have avoided today, but you decided to spill my blood. You forced me into a corner and gave me only one option. The decision was yours. Now you have blood on your hands that will never wash off. You sadistic snobs, I may be nothing but a piece of You have vandalized my heart, raped my soul, and torched my conscience. You thought it was one pathetic void light you were extinguishing. Thanks to you, I die, like Jesus Christ, to inspire generations of the weak and the defenseless people. Do you know what it feels like to be spit on your face and have trash shoved down your throat? Do you know what it feels like to dig your own grave? Do you know what it feels like to have your throat slashed from ear to ear? Do you know what it feels like to be torched alive? Do you know what it feels like to be humiliated and be impaled upon on a cross and left to bleed to death for your amusement? You have never felt a single ounce of pain your whole life. Yet you want to inject as much misery in our lives as you can, just because you can. You had everything you wanted. Your Mercedes wasn't enough, you brats. Your golden necklaces weren't enough, you snobs. Your trust fund wasn't enough. Your vodka and cognac weren't enough. All your debaucheries weren't enough. Those weren't enough to fulfill your hedonistic needs. You had everything. You just loved crucifying me. You loved inducing cancer in my head, terrorizing my heart, and raping my soul all this time. When the time came, I did it. I had to.
Imagine you're having fun sharing poems in your poetry class, and then it's this guy's turn. Around a month before the shooting, it would be revealed that he had hired an escort, and it was a very creepy experience for her. Soing Hori Cho hired her to dance for him in a motel room 1 month before the massacre at Virginia Tech's campus. Dancer Chastity Fire said in an on-camera interview with a TV station, "I danced for a little while, and I thought we were done because he got up and went to the restroom and began washing," said Fire, a white woman with blonde hair. I don't know why the news article I'm reading specified that. She told Cho that she was going to leave, to which he responded that he had paid for a full hour, and she had only performed 15 minutes. While she resumed dancing, Fire said that Cho touched her and tried to get on her before she pushed him away. Cho then apparently respected her wishes. Fire said she thought Cho looked familiar when she saw his face in the coverage of the Virginia Tech killings. She got a call from the FBI, which she said tracked her down through Cho's credit card receipts. Fire said that during a weekend interview, investigators asked her to describe Cho using 3 words. She chose dorky, timid, and a little pushy. Now, it's commonly reported that this woman was a prostitute, and people make fun of Cho for being rejected by a hooker, but I don't think that's true. I honestly think that's a bit disrespectful towards her. I'm pretty sure she was just a dancer. I don't think hookers accept credit cards. I mean, I wouldn't know.